How you doing? My name is Tongo Eisen Martin. I'm the poet laureate of San Francisco.
I had this dream, planted dead in a weekday that I was laid up in the hospital. And people kept coming into my room by the dozens. And each dozen had special handshakes for each other. And occasionally current dance moves. And they would kick my hospital bed from time to time to let me know that they would be dancing from this hospital room on out to my grave. Strange cha-chas and soft shoe shuffles, disco spins like they were dancing for a white sundial, marking numbness in their feet, drum race rioting. I was ready to die because, ask a musician in the tombs after court, it's the surroundings that is the uniform, but still I just couldn't bring myself to visualize against God. One of them stood over me like a conductor, waving their arms over my body, directing my heart to beat fainter and fainter.
What's up, everybody? John Henry, both sides of the conversation. Today, we are out in community today. We have a phenomenal event talking about the state of black folks and black economics. We're here in San Francisco at the Nice Museum here, and we just excited because the information that's coming out about how we lost generational wealth, how do we move forward, reparations. A lot of conversations are happening today. Some phenomenal folks is here. We got a professor here from Howard that's going to give us some gems and tools and strategies that they're using in reparation as we continue to call for the harm that's been committed to our community to be repaid, and just bringing all of this stuff back to the community. So we're just happy to be out here today with the Dream Keepers Human Rights Commission. But it's an amazing, amazing event. So many people from the community are just coming out, listen to all of the things that have taken place. We heard about the wealth, how it was taken from here in San Francisco, the policies that was put in place. Now we on the structure plan of how do we fix, how do we rebuild, how do we heal, and how do we uplift the people. Y'all know how we do it here at both sides of the conversation. Wherever the people be, that's where we be. All power to the people.
Hi, my name is Brittany Chiquata. I'm the Director of Economic Rights at the San Francisco Human Rights Commission, and I'm really honored that everyone came out today to join us for this State of Black San Francisco Economic Dignity and Booms and Busts conversation. We really wanted to spark many revolutions in every attendee here, because sometimes we talk about this content and it's only in a way that drags Black people or talks about us as in a pathological way or talks about the deficiencies, but we're so powerful and we always make a way, whether we're talking about midwives during enslavement, whether we're talking about people fighting against Black erasure, whether we're talking about folks who are just continuing to demand economic dignity and accountability and redress for all of the interruptions that have happened from corporations to the city to other lending institutions. When it comes to Black wealth in San Francisco, there's so much joy and pride in our contributions and so much more ahead. And today we're talking about what lies ahead and what we need to be stable, to continue to thrive in a city that we built.
And language is also powerful. The narrative that people spun about the film work, calling it a slum and having all those different metrics that add up to the fact that they wanted to clear it. You know, Justin Herman had this vision. You can go to the library and look at all these plans. Their vision is to get rid of Black people. I'm not.
I think, events like this are important to really putting the journey of Black people in perspective in the context of, us emerging from the other side of one of the greatest crimes against humanity in this whole journey, in that, secondary issues or, almost even a individual or secondary success is not going to get us to the finish line. Ultimately, we need to address the major socioeconomic reality in which we live. And so, the future, really the future of San Francisco, the future of Black San Francisco is tied to the power of the people.
This is great to have this in this kind of space right here. It tunes the community on to spaces that we can activate because Black San Francisco also wants to make this city cool as well, right? And then you get influential people that's doing work in the community to get to know and meet each other. You know, just like that song, getting to know you, getting to know all about you, right? You know, so you know you got organizers, you got people that's in business development, you got people that's in politics, people that's in urban planning, filmmakers, you know, that's Black, that's here in these spaces and places, right? So, you know, that's what this is all about and bringing it together. And then some people is here for the first time that are influencers and seeing this for the first time, right? So that's just the significance of this.
Hi, I'm Dr. Julianne Malveaux. I'm the Dean of the College of Ethnic Studies at Cal State LA, an economist, author, and syndicated columnist, and President Emerita of Bennett College for Women. I'm here today in San Francisco for a meeting, the State of Black San Francisco. It was put on by the Human Rights Commission, and Brittany, who has done the work around economic justice, was one of the organizers who got me here. I was in conversation with Brittany and Ann Price, who is formerly the director of the Insight Center, also an economist who does a lot of work on economic justice. We were really grappling with the question about economic justice in San Francisco. I am a native San Franciscan. I grew up in Bernal Heights. My mom was a social worker here, and my dad was an educator. He was assistant principal at Lincoln High School, I believe. He left us in 1989, and Mom left us just in 2021. But they basically were very active here in San Francisco, active with the NAACP and with other organizations, which is how I got my activist start, going to NAACP meetings back in the day. Back in the day, about 15% of San Francisco was Black. Today, we are an endangered species, some 5-6%, who knows, but it's a lot less than it used to be. How come? We were pushed out. Urban renewal really meant Negro removal for us. Our people literally found their homes demolished, taken over. This has happened all over the country with gentrification, but here it's been quite devastating to literally see the Black community disappear to the point that, you know, literally we're endangered here. And what I want to, there are a couple things. The main thing I would like to say is that this is something that can be resisted. And there are many ways to resist it. One, first of all, Ann Price talked a lot about joy. One of the ways for us to resist evil is to be joyful, even in our resistance, to ensure that we are out there. You know, we can be a little intense, but we also have to have a lot of fun. We had joy in enslavement. We jumped the broom, we had a good time with each other, and we can still do that. But the second piece of this is we must resist. There should never be a Board of Supervisors meeting that Black people aren't there. There should never be a Board of Education meeting where Black people aren't there. We should be everywhere. Even though our numbers are small, our numbers are still there. And we cannot let people forget the legacy of a Mary Ellen Pleasant, the legacy of William Lieserdorf, African-American man who was a multimillionaire and the treasurer of the city and county of San Francisco. So we can't forget, and if we stand on their shoulders, which we must, we stand on their shoulders, then we resist. Then our job is resistance. Our job is to say, no, we are not going to be erased. There is a movement toward erasing Black people, not only here in San Francisco, but nationally. When you have people, 44 states saying you can't teach ethnic studies or critical race theory or whatever, that you can't, because they don't know what critical race theory is. It's not being taught in K through 12 schools. But some states have passed laws that said you can't teach something that makes white children uncomfortable. Well, give me a break. Enslavement was uncomfortable. Jim Crow was uncomfortable. Urban renewal, Negro removal was uncomfortable. We saw a film and talked about the people who lost their homes. That's uncomfortable. Why don't people want to know the truth? In fact, this anti-CRT movement is really an anti-truth movement. People do not want to know the truth. The truth is uncomfortable. Guess what? In Germany, they've come to grips with what they did to Jewish people. They teach the Holocaust in schools. Why can't we teach enslavement in schools? Not to make anybody feel bad, but to let people know what it is, what this nation is, what this nation has done. And we are very, very reluctant to basically deal with that. And it's frightening. It's scary because what it really says is that you don't exist. Your history doesn't exist. And we're okay. We are, the world is not a narrow white occasion. And that's how many would like to portray it. And even our so-called brothers and sisters, other people of color, they are not immune to anti-blackness. They want their story to be told, to be sure, but they're not so sure that they want to hear ours. And all these stories are interconnected because we live in a society as a predatory, capitalist, homophobic, anti-feminist society. But the key words here are predatory capitalist. What does that mean? It means you use other people, you extract surplus value for other people. And in extracting surplus value, you diminish people. And that diminution cannot take place. But it will take place unless we fight back. The fact is that we haven't fought back. I had a classmate back in the day, his name was Palmer Page, and I can never remember the whole poem, but it was something like Black America 2000. This was, of course, in the 70s. And the poem went something like this. There once were people called black. They danced and they sang, and they danced, and in fine clothes they pranced. 'Tis a pity dead souls can't come back. He wrote that in the 70s, really thinking ahead about what was happening to black people. I think about that poem all the time because I think about the ways that people attempt to erase black people, or to tell us, well, why don't you just get along? Why don't you assimilate? And especially when we go to these elite universities and try to convince us that we're different than other people, we're not. They try to, well, you're black, but you're special. No, we're black and we're black. And the special has nothing to do with it. Some of us are more intelligent than others, but book learning is only one form of intelligence. Survival is another form of intelligence.
White women ain't checked for me yet. Spent the last 2 years drying your tears on the back of our bench warrants when you found out you was black too. Except not black, and your country still hates you. Let me find out you feel unsafe. Still a violation of speak it standing. Why does everyone who matters want us on our knees? Unless we are black. Then we are told to squat, but not to like it, to swallow, but not to pray, to kneel, but not to protest, sling the rock, catch the ball, watch your mouth, you son of a bitch. 6, we don't want nothing. 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 We don't want nothing. Nothing. We don't want nothing at all from you. We want Sundays back. The Chris Folder church program through an auntie's pinch snap into a fan and praising. We want sanctuary in our AMEs. We want silence when we question Jesus. We want to add a blessing to the readers and the hearers. We want Dylan Roth to come in here and see us in our new choir robes and smell God and never have thought about a gun in the first place. We want our grandma safe at Bible study. Right. You know how humiliating it is to ask that. Can't say no progress.
Hi, my name is Peter Stein. I'm the producer and the writer of a PBS documentary that was made 25 years ago at KQED called The Fillmore, which is a pretty deep history of the Western Addition, its roots as a Jewish and a Japanese American neighborhood, and especially its story in urban renewal and the impact of urban renewal on San Francisco's most thriving and vulnerable Black community. I made the film back in the late 90s because I felt really passionately that there was a story there that hadn't really been told, which is the story of race in San Francisco, and especially the role that, intentional or unintentional as it may be, the role that urban planning and urban renewal had on really decimating the then just beginning thriving Black community that started really in the wartime and thrived in the 50s in the Fillmore. So it's been really beautiful and very touching to me to see the film being used still these 25 years later in conversations around reparations as a kind of context setter for what really happened in the neighborhood, and to see new generations of historians and sociologists, community activists, and simply San Francisco residents still learning from the film and taking our knowledge to the next level. That's been really, really exciting. And this whole conversation today around the state of Black San Francisco has been eye-opening to me. And I'm very touched that something that I made 25 years ago to answer my own questions about what happened in that neighborhood can still be a bit of a context setter.
My name is Paul Henderson. I was one of the speakers here today. And the panel was really great, talking about the Fillmore and the film and all of the issues that it raised to me here in San Francisco as I'm a fourth generation San Franciscan, and so hearing about my own history, my own community intentionally obliterated from San Francisco was really difficult to hear. But I'm glad that we could all come together as a community and have this conversation, especially in the context of what's going on right now, the conversations that we're having right now about critical race theory, the conversations we're having right now about Black history, and the conversations we're having right now about reparations is all culminated in some of the theories that were presented in the film and the conversations that we had as a community here in the MoMA. I think it's really important that we're having the conversation and a cultural icon of a building that's supposed to reflect cultural values of San Francisco. And the challenges even that we see walking into this building on the walls as we don't see images that are reflective of our own community. And to the degree there are images that are reflective, they're not made by the community. They're made by white artists. There's not a large collection of Black artists. There's not a large collection of Black art. And that's the framework for even having the conversation to talk about San Francisco and the painful history that's been intentional about erasing the presence of San Franciscans, then also been intentional about eradicating and removing the foundation for success for communities of color. The redlining, the redistricting that went on in neighborhoods of color here, both in the Western Addition and in the Bayview, is a painful past. But it's a truth that has to be talked about in order to be addressed and to be fixed. We can't fix what we don't talk about, and we can't talk about what we don't know. So films like this, conversations like this, are of ultimate importance to me. When I look back on my own history from my family's experience, and I'm first generation outside of the housing projects. I grew up on 3rd and Gilman. My family has a long history of being in Harbor Row and the housing projects. My grandmother, when she bought her house in the 40s, that was the only neighborhood that she was allowed to buy a house in. And it was the neighborhood that had restrictive access to transportation because they changed the transportation lines and isolated the Bayview. It had restricted access to hospitals, medical care, to education, even groceries. My grandfather was one of the first grocers in San Francisco with a collective during the 60s where he put in a grocery store on 3rd and Gilman. And obviously that grocery store is not there. It was redlined out of the neighborhood. Not that there weren't other grocery stores, but many of the grocery stores during the 60s and 70s had overpriced products to capitalize on the isolation for the communities of color there in the Bayview. They did not sell all of the products that many people would want in that neighborhood. And so, my own personal history, seeing it validated by having a conversation like this and watching a film like this that stands in and of itself as something that people can go, it feels very validating to me. It feels very important to me. And it feels very motivating to me, as I hope it does for other people, to watch a film like this, to hear a conversation like this, and contemplate what are my next steps going to be? How do I address it? How do I move forward? How do I help others that look like me, that have had these same experience, do something different to change the narrative about what our future can be and what's possible? To me, that's the beginning of the conversation to start talking about reparations, because I think people forget about the fact that reparations has to start with looking backwards to repair the harm that has been done before you quantify what the harm is, before you quantify what a community and government is able to do. To recognize what they have done in the past has a cost that has not been paid. That's the beginning of the conversation. And it's also the beginning of the conversation to make sure that we're validating how we move forward with an awareness of what's happened in the past. Because if we don't know the history, if we ignore the history, how can we value the individuals that had those painful experiences that were forced upon them? How do we value the communities that still bear the scars for the lack of opportunities that they're experiencing even now? When we talk about generational wealth that's been eradicated from communities of color with an intentionality, how do we look across the field now with any sense of parity without understanding the history. That's why I think all of this is so important. And so I'm hoping that today is a pebble in the pond that sends ripples out for different communities and our own community to come together and take steps towards that make changes for our entire community in the future. And so that's how I feel. I'm excited about today. I'm all worked up just from hearing the conversation and meeting the folks that I was able to meet today. Having this be convened in San Francisco with the HRC and seeing city leaders and seeing community members, not just in San Francisco, but from the surrounding Bay Area that had ties and connection to San Francisco, feels important to me. And I'm grateful to have played a role. I'm grateful to have shared my voice. I'm grateful to exist in this space and have these conversations. And I do believe that my very existence, that the conversations itself are forms of resistance that change the narrative of what the future can look like. So thank you for having me. It's always been a pleasure.
Dr. Cheryl Evans Davis. Walked to the corner, went to the store, bought me some candy, ain't got it no more, ain't got it no more. Went to the beach, laid on the shore, built me a sandcastle, ain't got it no more, ain't got it no more. Went to the kitchen, laid on the floor, wrote me a poem, still got it, still got it. Economic rights is about all of those things. It is about the ability to go to the store and buy what it is that you want and not worry about how much it cost and not worry about having it gone and being away from you. It is about having the ability to have rest and leisure and to go to the shore, to play, to have the freedom to play and to relax and to just be, to build a sandcastle and know that it might go away, but that you took joy in the process of creating and being. But more than anything, it is about having the ability to have a kitchen floor, to have a place to go, to have the supplies and materials to just actually just write and think and be creative. That's what economic rights is about.
What are your intentions with your girlfriend?
Oh man, we locking in.
All right, you bought a house and you mentioned her in a public
Hey,
space.
I'm gonna keep it honest. My girlfriend is the reason why I do have the house. Generational wealth.
Yes.
Her dad is the one who actually, she lined it up. She talked to her dad and was like, "Yo, I was in a situation where I had a 2-bedroom and I was paying an arm and a leg for it." And I was like, I was just in a position where I was paying too much for a space that was too small. And I was fortunate, you feel me, working through it, but it was time to transition. Now I got 2 times the space for half the price because it's generational wealth. And this person saying, okay, let's work on this. And as we work on this, you feel me, you grow with my daughter and y'all come together as y'all build a union, you feel me, let's create this wealth. Because that's what a marriage is. That's what you're doing. We can be in love forever and never get married or anything like that. But when you start having businesses, you start having finances, you need to bridge that gap with the union. And
beauty in every shade, from the light skin to chocolate. And try most of these flavors, so your preference I can knock it. But something about that chocolate, gotta keep one in my pocket. Divine, supple, and elegant, blowing on that melanin, underappreciated, even with constant embellishment. Waterfall, how you flow, ain't nothing wetter than navigate the seas, baby, something like Magellan did. First they say they made you, then they say they hate you. Culturally appropriate you, cause they man just wanna date you. Champion how you play it, nobody could equate you. Tom Brady allegations, but they could never deflate you. It's something about these black women, I love them from the start. Fabulous in their essence, we can never put apart. Put a faith into the queens, put love into my heart. In order to see the light, had to put faith in that true black queen. If you're a black queen, put your hands in the air. If you're feeling good, let me see you. Let me see you put your hands in the air. Real quick, real quick. Hey, when I say black, y'all say queens. Black, black. When I say black, y'all say queens. Have some fun now. But the racist killer cops ain't getting gunned down. I'm just trying to sell some verses and some juice. Hit it. And we professing the truth. I'm trying to show the unity, but what's the use? Now everybody spit it, they don't want to hear the truth. Hey, that's why I get money, then I laugh about it. We running up 100,000, do the math about it. Reputation still valid, better ask about it. And if you got a problem, hey, see me moving timid, that's the old me. Now I'm making business moves with the OGs. Hey, still green. Everybody hit it with me, let me see you big stepping, hey. I'm big stepping. 4-5 on me look like a bitch pressing. Come on, let's get it. Let me see you. I love see you moving around. Let's go. Hit it. Let me see you.
4-5 on me looking like a bitch pressing. Let's go.